Hello everyone, welcome back. You're watching Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 92. I'm Enigmius and today the Ceterhinus build continues much as planned. Except compared to the last episode, we've got a whole bunch of extra stuff done. We were working on those arms that go around the side of the hangar. They've got some thrusters in them and they're basically just there for aesthetics. And in the process of doing it, I realized it would be a good place for thrusters. Now we're building something on top of those. So it's got kind of a layered thing going on. We've got the hangar and then we've got the superstructure sitting on top of the hangar. And now we're going to have this large structural element sitting on top of the superstructure. I guess it's contagious? I don't know. It spreads. It's like a virus, this building things on top of things. But for now, it seems to be working. You can see we've got a very basic profile that we did, and now we're just stretching it out to either side, and that's going to give us the largest parts of this whole thing, quick and easy. It'll be the transitions, as usual, that take all of the time. Now here, this is a great spot to look at. See how there's a gap between the top of the hangar and the top of the ship? That's something that I have to keep in mind as I'm building, because there's been a couple of times now when I've caught myself connecting things to the top of the hangar when we didn't want them to be connected. I want it to seem very much like this is a ship on top of, something that it's carrying with the arms that are reaching around the side. I'm not trying to trick anyone into thinking that's the case. It's just the aesthetic that I had in mind when I first started developing this thing in my head, which is where all of these builds start. You can see here we're starting with another one of those things that I do so often. There's a fine line between stubbornly insisting on trying to accomplish something and just failing to learn from past mistakes. And I think I'm straddling that line right now, and I've only got so many more attempts before I fall on the wrong side of it. Basically, we had the 22.5 degree angle on this big thing that we just finished building, the horizontal piece that went straight across along the top of the hangar, and now we're trying to bring it forward and in towards the middle. So I've got 22.5 degree angles and 45 degree angles that we're now merging with more 22.5 degree angles and compound angles and all of these different things. And we've done this so many times in the past, so many different builds, and it's not an easy thing to get the transition in a way that we're happy with. It's such a rare thing for me to do it that I never remember. It's so uncommon for me to end up with a transition that I'm truly happy with that I've never really gotten down into a routine for something that I would do from one build to the next. Like I say, it could just be, the 10 times you fail before you finally get it right, or it could be 10 times you fail, you should have stopped trying after the first one. There's only one way to find out, and that's either keep trying or stop. There's one of the two. In this case, obviously, I continue to try. It may or may not work out in the long run, but for now, it's just a matter of trying to manage the transition so that the blocks start going in the direction you want them to go, and then looking at them and saying, okay, am I happy with how that looks? That's the process. Is first, you get the blocks going in the direction you want them to go, and second, you take a look at what you did to do that, and ask if it's something that you can live with. And in this case, it's going to take some working and reworking before I'm really happy with it. And it's this section right there that I just finished, that long, straight 22.5 degree slope that's coming down off the top, that I look at it and I say, no, that's not going to fit with what we were doing. So we get rid of it. I mean, that's the easiest solution, of course, in this case, is to get rid of it and try something else. When it comes down to the interior space in the ship, and this is a good place to talk about it because we've got a lot of elements coming together. There's some elements of what we did in the last episode that I'll actually have to be removed before we continue. There's going to be an absolutely enormous amount of interior space in this capital vessel, just in the process of building things out the way that I have in mind. I don't have to worry about making sure I've got enough space inside because it's going to take care of itself. Even if you haven't been following this build series, every once in a while the camera will swivel by and you'll see that little collection we have. There's a couple of fuel tanks and a generator and a cockpit block sitting in the middle of the ship, and that might help give some idea of scale in terms of what we're looking at, we don't really need that much inside. We didn't have a ton of stuff inside our last capital vessel. It may have seemed like it to a lot of people. Sometimes you go to different places where people are talking about the game and sharing their creations, and they show you all of the equipment they've got in this ship, and the takeaway is that they feel it's a very substantial amount of equipment. And for me, that's what I would have in an escape pod, I guess, to put it that way. It doesn't say anything about me that's, particularly positive or skilled. It just means that I have a tendency to put in more stuff in my ships than I guess the status quo is apt to consider most of the time. And I'm not going to need all of the space that this ship is going to provide in order to do that. The most space-consuming thing that I have in any of my ships, especially capital vessels, or I guess I should say exclusively capital vessels, is the farm, the place where we can grow vegetables so that we don't ever have to worry about running out of food. Just the very nature of the way those things are set up, very, very space intensive to set it up to what I would like to have. I know in the capital vessel that we're dismantling to build this one, we had that distinct pod sitting on the top of it that was all just there for the growing plots so that we could grow our own vegetables, and we could grow 48 of each of the 3 kinds of vegetables that you need in order to make canned vegetables. It adds up. When you figure how often you can gather from the farm, how often the vegetables grow relative to how often that you need to eat, it's very, very easy to develop a surplus of food. And when it comes to survival games where food is one of those things, the easiest way to deal with the food challenge is to just develop a surplus at all times, and then it becomes a non-issue. That's just the nature of the beast. In this case, we're going to have lots of room for building the farm without interfering with any of the other space, all the storage, all the constructors, all the warp drive. I almost said warp drives, but we only need 1. Things like that we're going to be able to fit in quite easily. Right now, we've sort of finished, I guess you could say, with the top section and building it out the way that we wanted. We're satisfied with the transition that we've done. And now this is what I was talking about with building things and connecting them to the top of the hangar, which is a no-no. That's not a part of the design. It's not difficult to fix, but it was one of those things where I just did it without thinking. I'm so used to building ships where everything is sort of attached. We don't have this concept of 2 separate entities loosely connected to one another. But I found it, and I noticed it, and I fixed it, so you don't have to worry about it. If you saw it too, and you're like, what the hell are you doing? You said you were going to do all this stuff, and now it's connected. It'll be fine. We'll get it fixed. But a lot of the stuff that we did with these arms, we have to remove. The stuff that we're doing in the last episode, we have to remove big chunks of it because the way things worked out with what we're doing in this episode, a lot of that stuff from the arms would have wound up actually inside the ship, which sort of defeats the purpose. If you have an exterior element, it doesn't make sense to keep it there if it's not going to be outside the ship. So we'll remove those. All those bits, we'll do a little bit of reworking in a couple spots, and then in the next episode we'll be mostly focusing on getting this sort of upper top level transition in place, and then we'll worry about bringing it around and down to the front where we will have the bridge, and then we're going to do the rear section, which is going to be where the obviously the propulsion thrusters are going to be. I've got some ideas for that, and then we will have the farm section on top, and then it'll just be loading in all the machines, and we should be mostly good to go. So we've got a lot left to do. There'll be at least a half dozen more episodes in this mini-series, but we're making good progress, and if you want to be notified when I add the next and future episodes, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.